The sun wants to shine. It wants to be seen, to express, and to be as it uniquely is. But what happens when the light of the sun is constantly met with pressure or judgment, or even with a sense that it's not quite allowed to shine freely? In Vedic astrology, this dynamic is captured in something that is called Lajjita Avastha, a state of a planet which expresses itself with hesitation, unease, or even shame. Hi, welcome to Inner JYOTISH, where the outer cosmos meets the inner cosmos. Today, we are going to unpack one of the most psychologically rich Sun-Saturn dynamics. And not just any type of dynamic, but when Saturn causes Lajjita, or shame in English, onto the sun. And first we will do this in theory, and then we will explore this through Justin Bieber's birth chart. To comprehend the dynamic of Saturn shaming the sun, we first have to understand the nature of the Sun and Saturn, not just as planets, but as experiences and aspects within us. Let's begin with the sun. The sun is our unique ray of light. It's that part of you that wants to express, create, and radiate your authentic sense of self. It's also the part of you that simply says, "This is who I am." And in Jyotish, it is even said that the sun represents the soul or consciousness itself, pointing to this idea of the sun being the center of our being. Now, Saturn, on the other hand, plays a very different role within us. Its primary concern is survival, to protect, to preserve, and to ensure that we endure over time. Because of this, Saturn can make us cautious and even restrictive if that is necessary. Moreover, Saturn carries a certain weight, the awareness of consequences, of time, and of reality as it is. Not only what is beautiful or safe, but also that which is difficult, uncertain, or even dangerous. So while the sun says, "I want to express," Saturn asks, "But is that safe?" Now, when these two energies meet, and especially in a place like the fifth house, which, like the sun, invites us to create and express, something very specific happens. The sun wants to shine, but Saturn's presence introduces hesitation and self-doubt. The person doesn't feel safe to express themselves, so they are more cautious or even restrained. And typically, this occurs because of certain life experiences in which the person was heavily criticized, judged, or even shamed for wanting to express themselves authentically. Really, in any house, Saturn's presence for the sun can cause restrictions, fear, doubt and criticism around self-authenticity and self-expression. But in the fifth house specifically, this dynamic is colored by shame, where one feels ashamed about their unique sense of I. And this is what we recognize as Lajjita Avastha, a state in which a planet's expression is infused with a sense of embarrassment and shame. And technically, one of the conditions for Lajjita Avastha is for the planet to be in the fifth house and joined with planets like Saturn, the Sun, or Mars. So when the Sun is joined by Saturn in the fifth house, the tension between these two planets becomes even more intense and more painful. Now, this is where I want to show that astrology isn't just theoretical. It's a phenomenon that we can recognize through lived experiences. So let's turn to the chart of Justin Bieber and see how this dynamic of Sun-Saturn unfolds in real life. Just before we move into the chart, I want to take a brief moment to express something essential. When we explore something like Sun-Saturn Lajjita dynamic in Justin Bieber's chart, it's easy to forget that we are speaking about a real human being and his lived experiences. Astrology gives us symbolic language, not final verdicts. So whatever we observe in the chart, it's not about to label or reduce the person, but to gain a greater comprehension of one's life and existence as a whole. So in that spirit, I invite us all to explore the birth chart with respect, care, and empathy. Okay, so here it is, the birth chart of Justin Bieber. And it's this big square over here. All the little squares are the houses, the 12 houses. Out of all, I really want you to focus only on the fifth house, where we can see that the Sun, SU, is together with Saturn, SA. And again, that is the fifth house for Scorpio ascendant. Now, before diving deeper into this Sun-Saturn Lajjita in the fifth house, I need to express something quite important. And that is, since this is an educational video, my analysis and this example overall will be quite simplified. In an actual birth chart analysis and reading, I would have to go through several steps to have a full picture about this or on this Lajjitaadi Avastha. Again, since this is an educational video, I will not be going through all of these steps. If I did that, this video would be probably an hour long or so. So please keep this in mind, that it's not enough to see the Sun and Saturn together in the fifth house and then go on talking about Lajjita Avastha. If you see a Lajjita Avastha in your chart, I highly recommend reaching out to a professional Vedic astrologer to help you evaluate the actual situation of that Avastha in your chart. So for the sake of this video, I will simplify this and share what I think is essential. So the first thing that I want to introduce is what the Sun, the planet which is experiencing shame, besides its natural significations such as the sense of self, unique ray of light, also things like self-esteem, self-confidence, the ability to radiate oneself out in the world. So besides these things, what does the Sun in Justin Bieber's chart also represents, and what type of energy it carries? So we learn that through the house the Sun rules. And since this is Scorpio ascendant, the Sun is the Lord of the 10th house. Right here in the 10th house, we see Leo. The LE stands for Leo, and Leo is ruled by the Sun, meaning that the Sun not only carries its natural significations, but also the energy of the 10th house. Now, what is the 10th house? The 10th house has quite a lot of resonance with the Sun, because the 10th house is like the most visible house in the birth chart. And for that reason, it signifies things like one's visibility, how visible one is. And from that comes the topic of fame, as well as one's impact on the world. And the most classical factor about the 10th house is that it represents one's career. So the Sun is carrying that energy in Bieber's chart, besides its natural significations. And it's important to keep this in mind, because all of these aspects will be also experiencing some sort of shame potentially. Now, coming back to the Sun, without becoming too technical, without going too deep into every single little step that you have to take in order to properly evaluate Avastha, I want to introduce 3 things about the Sun. And these 3 things are seen in this table right here. So the dignity of the Sun, Baladi Avastha, and Jagradadi Avastha of the Sun. The dignity, the N stands for neutral. When a planet's dignity is neutral, it means that it has almost like a 50-50 type of capacity to act in a favorable way. Now, Vrida Baladi Avastha. Baladi Avastha is a state of the planet which shows its karmic fruition. So whatever is happening with the planet, Baladi Avastha shows how potent that will be in one's life. And when a planet, in this case the Sun, is in Vrida, and Vrida means old, it means that the karmic fruition is old, but old not in the sense that it's lasting for a long time. It's in the sense of that it's approaching death. It's coming toward the end. And Vrida Avastha for the Sun, which rules the 10th house but is under pressure here, has sort of a dualistic situation, because for the 10th house, which represents one's capacity to make an impact on the world and have a strong career, Vrida Avastha can be on a more negative side, showing that one's influence may be diminishing in this lifetime or over the time, as if it's like a match which is burning out near the end. So for the 10th house and for the sun itself, it's not the best Lajjita Avastha. But when we are talking about Lajjita Avastha, then it's leaning more towards the positive, because Vrida Avastha is indicating that this karma is near the end. So the pressure, the challenge of Lajjita Avastha will not last for one's entire life, or will not be as severe as it could if it was in another Lajjita Avastha. Saturn is shaming the sun in the 5th house, and the 5th house, like I was saying before, it symbolizes creativity and self-expression, just like the sun. So that is experiencing restrictions and shaming and some sort of hesitation, not feeling fully comfortable to do that. And that is influencing Justin's 10th house. So all of these things are visible, so that shaming is on another level. It's not private, it's public. Now again, since the sun is in Vrida Avastha, we can expect that the influence of Saturn towards the sun will be diminishing with time. And the other thing is that the sun is quite supported by Jupiter right here. So not to go way too deep into this, just to give a counterbalance, an additional idea is that I see that this person has the potential to see purpose in what is happening for them and in their life. Even find a spiritual idea or a spiritual philosophy to endure the challenge here. I don't want to share in this video like articles, videos, or stuff like that where people have shamed and criticized Justin Bieber. It's overloaded, really. The whole internet is overloaded with that. So if you're not familiar with that, if like you're not familiar that Justin Bieber has been, but more like had been, and I really can see how that Vrida Avastha is playing out, as he's not as shamed as he used to be. You can look for that on the internet. But I remember ever since Justin Bieber became famous, right, the 10th house, the sun, he was constantly met with pressure, judgment, and shaming from almost like from head to toe. I remember his hairstyle was judged and shamed, his voice was judged and shamed, his songs were shamed as well. It always seemed that people were looking for ways to expose him. And there's even an interview where Justin is saying that he always felt this pressure to be as perfect as possible, because he truly felt like people are just like waiting for the moment to grab onto something. So yeah, looking both at the chart and at Justin's lived experiences, I can tell that this person truly knows what shame and public shame is. And that is definitely not easy to experience. So again, I just want to invite everyone to hold more empathy for this person and be more mindful about how thoughts, emotions, comments, videos, and whatnot, how that can impact a real human being. What we have looked at today is much more than just a configuration between two planets. It's a glimpse into how one can become aware how their expression is seen by others, and how that awareness can alter their expression of self. The Sun-Saturn dynamic through Lajjita Avastha shows us that self-expression is not always flowing freely. Sometimes it becomes hesitant, cautious, and influenced by challenging experiences. And when we see this reflected in the birth chart of Justin Bieber, it's not to define him, but to gain a better understanding of his lived experiences through the symbolic language of astrology. Because at its core, astrology is not about judgment, but about comprehension and liberation. That's it. Please feel free to share in the comments anything that comes into your mind. And thank you for being here. I hope to see you in my next video.